Hi friends, Cole here. It's Wednesday, the 19th of August, and I'm here with another midweek message from Selkirk United Church. I was reading a very interesting article this past weekend about ministers and churches and congregations and what people are struggling with these days in this pandemic world we're living in. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I do want to touch on a couple things that were said in the article. It talked about all the different challenges that we're all facing as the months go by. They actually did some research and surveyed ministers and congregants and compiled the data from a number of different questions that they asked. The data showed that just over 1 in 3 ministers are facing burnout. One of the writers of the article said that he resonated with those statistics. He said, "I've felt all of those things. I've had some dark days. I am a pure optimist. It's very hard to get me down, and resiliency is one of my strengths. But I think the thing that's been the hardest for me is that I just didn't sign up for online ministry." He continues saying, "I think a lot of people are being forced into positions where they either have a lack of practical skills in doing things online, or that it's just not their preference. It's not how they're used to working, and that gets draining." I found that to be a frightening statistic, more than 1 in 3 ministers feeling that way. I'm an optimist too, and I tend to be able to find the positives in almost any situation. But I can certainly understand how this is a big challenge for everyone. I've been fortunate in that my sense of positivity hasn't disappeared. There have been a few challenges along the way for sure, but I definitely wouldn't say that I'm in danger of anything close to burnout, so that's good. I've actually found some energy in learning some new technology and figuring out ways to share things with our church family in ways that we've never tried before. We've actually been able to reach some new people with our services and messages, and there has been some really good online interaction with many of you. The one thing that does bother me is that I know that we have a few people who are not online, who don't have the technology, so I do feel bad that we're not able to offer very much to those folks in the past 5 months. I have been able to see quite a few positives come from this, negatives too, for sure. But so far, my optimism has helped me to focus on the positives more than the negatives. Another interesting theme in the article was the idea of opportunities to live out our faith, and whether or not those opportunities have been disrupted, and how much. The author said that in terms of Sunday services, there has been 100% disruption. But in terms of people loving their neighbors, serving their neighbors, he says, "I think that we're actually at an advantage. People are forced to do mission and focus on outreach and pastoral care in ways they perhaps would not have before." And I think that's true. Maybe not for every person or every circumstance, but I know that especially in terms of pastoral care, so many of our people have found that they are reaching out more to each other, to relatives, to neighbors, to friends, checking in with each other, even if it's just for some social interaction. But that's very important too. And often there is a pastoral component, a caring component, more than just talking about the weather, but actually wanting to know how the other is really doing and finding ways to lift each other's spirits and support each other. And that's a vital part of our calling as Christian people. I've been so pleased to see that happening among you and hearing stories about it from so many of you. There was another part of the survey that caught my attention. It talked about whether people's faith might diminish during this crisis. The numbers were interesting. Near the beginning of the pandemic, the numbers were very low in terms of how many people thought their faith was diminishing, something like 4%. After 4 months of the pandemic, however, that number was up to 18%. Obviously, that's not good news. But let me put a positive spin on this, like I like to do. While 56% of people said their faith hadn't wavered, 27% of people said that they thought their faith had actually increased. Increased. I found that to be fascinating. Maybe that has to do with people feeling like they turn to God more often when times are challenging. I'm not sure. The writer of the article had an interesting take on this. He said, "There's a deep, I think, theological re-examination that's happening right now. It's not the kind of faith that is saying, thanks God, everything is pure joy right now and we're feeling particularly blessed at the moment. A lot of people are probably angry at God, disillusioned, or at least questioning. But he says struggling with God is not a sign of losing faith. It's a sign of deepening faith, or can be. Wrestling with God can lead to a deeper conversation, even a deepening of faith. I think that can be true. I hope that that is happening for people right now. I know that this has been very difficult for many of you. It's not as easy as just being an optimist or saying the right prayer or wishing away the negatives. But I also know that God is here for us when we're at our lowest moments, and that God calls us to be here for one another. And I'm glad that we have a church family who cares about each other. And I hope that all of you will keep that in mind when you're going through a valley or having a difficult day or week. There is good news out there and good people, lots of them. Let's help each other find it, find good news, and find one another when we really need them. And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in today. God be with you. Peace be with you. And I hope to see you soon.